Auspicious greetings. Auspicious greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for March's TBIF special Dharma lecture. And before we start, please make sure your microphone is muted and the video is on if possible, as a way to show respect to our guest speaker. It is our honor to have Venerable Karma Lekshe Tsomo to spend time with us in sharing with us on equity and diversity in Buddhism. And for a brief summary of her biography, Venerable Karma Lekshe Tsomo is a professor of Buddhist studies at the University of San Diego, where she teaches world religions, Buddhist thought and culture, and dying, death, and social justice. She was ordained as a novice nun in France in 1977 and received full ordination in Korea in 1982. After studying Buddhism in India for 15 years, she completed a doctorate in comparative philosophy at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in 2000. She is a founder and past president of the Sakyadhita International Association of Buddhist Women and the director of Jamyang Foundation, a nonprofit that supports education for girls and women in India, Bangladesh, and other countries. Her publications include Women in Buddhist Tradition, Buddhist Feminisms and Femininities, Into the Jaws of Yama, Buddhism, Bioethics and Death, Sisters in Solitude, 2 Traditions of Monastic Ethics for Women, and numerous books on women in Buddhism. And first, before we get started with the lecture, let us gather our thoughts, center ourselves on breathing, and let us have a few minutes of meditation. And please sit comfortably with your back straight. Take off your glasses and watches, and let us take a few deep breaths. And just focus on our breath, breathe in and out. Let us take a few deep breaths and slowly open our eyes. Okay, let us put our hands together and welcome our guest speaker.
Aloha everyone, and Tashi Dele, Omitopo. I'm very happy to be with you this evening to talk about a very timely topic, equity and diversity in Buddhism. Now these days, this issue has become more important than ever. And at the university now, we are required to take equity and diversity training every year, and we have to pass it in order to keep our job. So it's become extremely important that we understand human differences and appreciate human differences. And of course, from a Buddhist point of view, not only human differences, but species differences, right? So we want to appreciate even the bugs. I'm living in the country now with lots of butterflies and birds and animals and insects, and we gain an appreciation for all of them. So we want to look at what the Buddhists would have to say about the question of equity and diversity. It's a huge topic. I'm very grateful to Venerable Miaozang for recommending this topic. So yes, it's a good one. So in 1994, the Dalai Lama visited Honolulu. I invited him here for 4 days. It was Sakadita, Hawaii. Our local chapter of Sakadita means Daughters of the Buddha. And it's the International Association of Buddhist Women. So we have branches in many countries, and we have some local chapters also. So this is one of our projects. And he came and spoke in an interreligious kind, many events, but one was an interreligious gathering here at one of the concert halls. And I remember very distinctly that he talked about how the fingers of our hands all have different functions, right? If we had 5 thumbs, it wouldn't work very well. Each finger has its own function, its own special abilities, right? And he said, this is like human beings. We're not all the same. And it's a good thing that we're not all the same. What if our hand had 5 thumbs? We couldn't function. We couldn't do the work that we do. And so there is beauty in diversity. A Hawaiian minister, Reverend Akaka, was one of our guest speakers that day. I remember very well. He picked up a ukulele, the Hawaiian ukulele, and he said, the 4 strings of the ukulele all have a different sound. Each one has a different tone. If they all had the same tone, it would be very boring, right? So we could say the same thing about a guitar, that the strings have different tones, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So these are 2 analogies for diversity, the beauty of diversity. The 5 fingers of our hand, how they're different, and yet they work together in wonderful ways. And the strings of the ukulele. Actually, I have an ukulele here. But how the strings of the ukulele work together to produce beautiful sound. So we could say the same for humanity in all of our differences. Now, from a Buddhist point of view, the idea is that we want to be free from closeness to some and distance from others. In other words, we want to learn to appreciate all sentient beings equally. Now, this is a huge challenge for all of us. Normally, we have special affection for our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones, our relatives, right? And sometimes we don't pay attention to other people. We feel very cut off from them. Think of passing the homeless on the street. Sometimes we turn away from them. Or we see people who are not well in their mind on the street. And instead of giving them a smile and asking, how are you doing? We turn away. We may even cross the street to avoid engaging with them. So we need to look honestly at our own habit patterns and how we tend to feel closer to those who are working to our advantage. People who are nice to us, we feel so close to. Someone gives us $100, oh, we like them so much, right? Someone else who harms us, says something unkind to us, someone who spreads rumors about us, oh, we don't want anything to do with them, right? We push them away. We avoid them. And then the largest number of people are perfect strangers, people that we don't know, we don't even care about. Right? Out of 7.5 billion people on planet Earth, most of them we don't even know. We don't even think about them. Oh, we may pray in general. Oh, may all beings be happy. May all beings be, awakened, and so on. But in actual fact, we're generally speaking, we ignore the vast majority of human beings, and not to mention the animals, right? The animals far outnumber us, especially the fish and the insects, right? So if we're on the Bodhisattva path, we take a vow to achieve awakening in order to liberate all living beings from suffering. Mm-hmm. But are we really sincere when we make that aspiration? Are we really willing to go to the lowest hell in order to save even one sentient being? Are we ready to work to liberate all cockroaches from samsara? I mean, think about it. It's pretty daunting, actually. So, in a way, in the Buddhist tradition, equity translates to equanimity. That would probably be the closest, right? We don't normally talk about equality because equality is something that's very difficult to achieve. Even among human beings, look at the vast inequalities that exist among us. The disparities of wealth, where, the billionaires own more than all of the other 7.5 billion people together. I mean, the disparities of wealth are greater now than they've ever been in human history. Human slavery is greater now than any other time in human history. So we live in a time of vast inequalities. Many good things going on, but there are also many problems, and a lot of them have to do with equity and diversity. So let's look at it more deeply. Let me show you some slides. And some of these may be a bit controversial, but, at the university, we say that the job of the teacher is to make the student uncomfortable. I don't know if you will agree. Maybe you'll never invite me again. Here is a PowerPoint, just slides mostly. But what we want to do is learn to appreciate difference, okay? Even among the different leaves. Here I'm planting trees and vegetables and flowers, and all of the leaves are unique. They're all very different. I have an app that is called plant.net, and I can take a photo and try to identify the different leaves, but there's so many, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of different leaves and flowers. So they can only come up with an approximation, maybe 70%. This is the plant you're looking at. They don't know for sure. Also amongst human beings, we have so many different kinds of human beings, all with different backgrounds, all with different ideas, all with different dreams and expectations, right? Human beings come in all different hues, all different colors, right? Maybe not purple and green, but, we all have different skin tones. White and black is just a real oversimplification. Because, if we look at the different colors of human skin color, we find so many beautiful variations, right? But this kind of diversity can also be the basis for discrimination. And we find that when employers interview people for a job, there is overall a great prejudice against people with darker skin tones. Yeah. They've even found that if a person has a name that is different, it identifies them with a minority, then their chances of getting the job is much less. If they have a European-sounding standard sort of Anglo-Saxon name, they have a higher percentage or possibility of getting a job. Well, this is the world we live in, a world of great discrimination, often based on skin tone. So, in fact, though, humanity has so many beautiful variations in terms of age, in terms of culture, in terms of gender, in terms of abilities, talents, and so on. And we can learn from all of them. So, working together then, we can create a peaceful, happy world. But how do we get over our own prejudices? How do we identify our own discrimination against certain people, against the homeless, against people of darker skin tones, of people who are uneducated, people who are abusers of substances and so forth? So this is a challenge to all of us to check our own prejudices, right? If we're going to achieve equity and diversity, we have to be honest with ourselves. Do we value everyone equally? The rich, the poor, the thin ones, the chubby ones, people of different educational backgrounds and abilities. Check it out. We should try to be honest. Now, in an ideal world, people would appreciate the diversity of different human beings. It's really quite beautiful. Our different appearances, our different ideas, our creativity, and our different talents. Some can be quite unusual, in fact. How do we appreciate people who are really different? Sometimes on the street, we meet people who are dressed in really wild outfits. Are we able to give them the same smile that we give the people who look like us? A friend of mine teaches world religions here at University of Hawaii, and he did a survey among his students. He had about 600 students, and he gave them a survey. And the outcome of the survey was that most of his students preferred to hang out with people who looked like them. Isn't that amazing? Even here in Hawaii, where we have so many 80 different nationalities, 80 different languages, and no one is the majority. We are all minorities. And yet, even here in Hawaii, the so-called melting pot of the world, people prefer to associate with people who look just like themselves. Now, when we think about it, maybe that's comfortable. It's comfortable to hang out with people who speak the same language, who have the same, habits, like to eat the same foods, maybe have the same educational or professional background. And yet, how limiting it is just to associate with people who look like us and act like us. So, diversity, of course, has become a huge issue in government as well. We find that not everyone has the same right to vote in the United States. People point to the United States as being a beacon of democracy, and yet we're finding that passing an Equal Voting Rights Act has become impossible. There are people who do not want everyone to have an equal right to vote. It's really quite painful. But this is what we've come to in this country. Now, we do have a remarkable diversity of religions and cultures in the United States. And of course, this is mirrored in other countries too. I've spent time in Indonesia, for example, and you find a wide variety of cultures, languages, religions, ideas. And even within Buddhism, there are many varieties. For example, we think of all Buddhists as being very peaceful people, right? And yet today we find Buddhist nationalism on the rise. We first encountered this, and quite shocking, in Sri Lanka, 25-year-long war between people who were Sinhalese and Tamil, but actually Buddhist and Hindu. The leader of the Tamil Tigers was actually a Christian. And now we find and the Buddhists of the world said nothing about this slaughter of human beings in Sri Lanka for 25 years. This is something we have to think about also, the responsibility that Buddhists hold for upholding our values. And now in Burma, we find here's Waratu. He's in the robes of a monk, but because he advocates violence against Muslims, I'm not sure we can call him a monk. Anyway, everyone was shocked to see the cover of Time magazine, the face of Buddhist terror. So how can it be that Buddhists who are supposed to be upholding the values of loving kindness and compassion are advocating violence against people of a different religion? So again, diversity. And how do we achieve equity among all this diversity? Now, it's not just among human beings that we have diversity, but among the different creatures of the world. Look at all these beautiful insects and animals. Oh, boy. And we can sort of check our biases. Do we prefer the puppy to the cockroach? The bird to the pig, or the elephant to the snake? We can check our prejudices also, can't we? Even among the animal kingdom. Now, of course, the way the Buddhists portray this is the wheel of life. In the wheel of life, from lifetime to lifetime, we take different rebirths. We may be born as a long life god, or a demigod, or if we're lucky, as a human being, or as an animal, or as a hungry ghost, or as a hell being. Lots of diversity. According to our actions, depending on our actions, then we may take rebirth in one of these realms. So right now, we're fortunate to be a human being, and most of us would identify very strongly as a human being. And yet, in our next lifetime, we may be born, it's possible, right? That we're born in another realm of existence. So that also causes us to question our attachment to identities and to recognize the diversity. So here we have the upper realms, the long life gods, the demigods, and the human beings. And then we have the lower realms, the animals, the hungry ghosts, and the hell realms. One moment, please. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm giving it up. I'll be finished in about a half hour. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. So we can be reborn in any of these realms anytime. This is the first question I asked the Dalai Lama. In some religious traditions, some spiritual traditions, they say that, this is not playing properly, is it? It's supposed to show you the entire slide. Why is it doing that? Let me see. It should be, the slideshow should show you the entire slide. Oh.
If I may, maybe down at the bottom right, you can click it.
Yeah, that little guy. Oh, yeah, great. So sorry, I didn't realize that until just this moment. Okay, so the vast diversity here, you can see more clearly the animal realm over here, and the hungry ghost realm here, and the hell realm here. Now, a lot of Americans may call this folklore or something, but the Buddha, this is what the Buddha saw when he was sitting under the tree, was that people are born in different realms. And when I went to meet His Holiness Dalai Lama for the first time, I asked him this question. In some spiritualist traditions, they say that once you get a human rebirth, you will never be reborn in a different life form. His answer was, you can be reborn as anything, anytime. Well, that was a wake-up call. Okay, so we should not be complacent that we will necessarily be reborn as a human being, because here we see in the center the pig and the snake and the rooster. And this represents greed, hatred, and ignorance. Due to greed, hatred, and ignorance, we engage in all kinds of actions, including many non-virtuous actions. And as a result of our actions, we are born in different states of existence. So this would be one perspective from a Buddhist point of view on the question of diversity. Okay, and okay, so we have all the, now, of course, the ideal is to become a perfectly awakened being, a fully awakened being, a Buddha. And a Buddha has the capacity to travel to all of these different realms. You remember he went up to the heaven of the 33 to teach to his mother. And we find that awakened beings appear in all different forms, at least in certain traditions. We also have Buddhists in the form of Tara, a form of a woman. And that's a controversial issue. But I figure, enlightened beings should have the capacity to take whatever form they wish. And if they felt that being reborn as a woman were more beneficial, then they might take rebirth as a woman. So we get into the question of gender diversity also. Here we could be reborn as a heavenly being, a god, sporting in pleasure. But these lifetimes last for a very long time. For a bodhisattva, I think one on the bodhisattva path, it would be something of a timeout to be born in a god realm. I mean, you'd be stuck up, it'd be fun, but you'd be stuck there for about 40,000 years. And, people are suffering. So why would we want to go to heaven and hang out for 40,000 years while people are suffering in the lower realms? Anyway, that's an open question. I leave you to consider. The hungry ghost realms, where they portray beings sort of obsessed with greed and desire. We get reborn there due to our greed and stinginess, and they are never able to quench their desires, always on the lookout for food, even, one grain of rice. But they can't digest it. They can't get it through their little necks. So all this diversity, and the hell realms, we probably don't even want to go there. So, or human rebirth, okay? Human rebirth is said to be the best possible rebirth, and we're all fortunate, I suppose, the ones who are listening here today, we're all fortunate to have a human rebirth. And so, but we come into this life in different situations. Some are born into poverty, some are born into wealth, some are born healthy, some are born with serious health problems, or missing a limb perhaps. Some are born into happy families where people get along with each other, and others are born into families that are full of violence and alcohol and drugs and so forth. So even getting a human rebirth is not enough. We want to make sure that we get born into a conducive situation where we can learn the Dharma, right, and practice the Dharma. Now, people come in different shapes and colors. I compiled some images from a book called Hapa, 100% Hapa. No, it says, yes, half Asian, 100% Hapa. Hapa means half and half in Hawaiian. So you see people who have integrated through their lineage from their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, many different nationalities. And this may be the future of humanity, where we have, many different sort of ethnicities in our DNA. People are finding more and more. And then, of course, we come to the question of gender diversity. And this is controversial among some people, but I think now educated people are getting more and more conversant and comfortable with issues around gender diversity and sexual diversity. So they talk about LGBTQ 101, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer, and then there are many others, intersexual, and some put a plus sign because there are just so many different possibilities. So we're all learning more and more about this kind of diversity. And I come to find out that, sexual diversity was common in ancient cultures. In Greece, for example, Plato and Socrates and Aristotle all had male lovers when they were young. And then they got married and had children. It was just common. In Africa, we find gender diversity. In Taiwan, we find gender diversity. In fact, in Taiwan, they held a few years ago the first gay wedding. Venerable Jiao Hui, she's quite radical in some ways in women's rights, human rights, animal rights, and now in terms of gay rights. So this was shocking to some and really welcomed by others. That people have different gender preferences and sexual preferences, and that's part of diversity and equity. And they are Buddhist, right? It was a Buddhist wedding, and they're very happy together, and their parents were very happy and accepting also. So this is a new chapter in the playbook of equity and diversity. Now, one way the Buddhists might approach this topic also is through a study of the Brahma Viharas. Is this bar? I don't know if that's showing, but we call the 4 Brahma Viharas, or the 4 divine abodes. I'm sure you're all familiar with these: compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. I think this is maybe a real contribution from the Buddhist perspective on the issue of equity and diversity. What do we mean by these terms? Okay, let's see if we can get this to move. And it's not moving. What did I do? Oh, interesting. It's not moving. Oh, well. Here we go. Okay, so compassion. The wish, may all beings be free from suffering. All beings, not just some, not just our favorites, not just our loved ones and friends and, people who give us some benefit, who give us praise or presents. All beings. Loving kindness, may all beings be happy. All beings. The homeless, the drunks, the drug addicts, the poor. Sympathetic joy. Means rejoicing in the qualities and good fortune of others. This is a great antidote to jealousy. Sometimes when we see someone who has more than we do, who gets all the opportunities in life, who we think is more beautiful or more whatever, right? And we feel some yucky feeling. And if we're honest, we'll recognize it as jealousy. Here's the antidote: rejoicing in the qualities and good fortune of others. And last, equanimity. Now, equanimity can mean many things. Traditionally, it means remaining calm and even-tempered in all situations. But equanimity can also mean remaining calm and even-minded when we meet all different kinds of beings. Beings we like, beings we don't like, all beings, right? So, and all beings we try to treat equally. When we recognize someone who's unhappy, someone who is suffering, maybe we want to particularly be kind to those beings. We can rejoice when we come across someone that we can show some special gratitude or appreciation for, and help them to pull out of an unhappy moment, for example, as shown in this picture. We can recognize, now this is another contribution I think that the Buddhists can bring to the question of equity and diversity, is to recognize that all beings have within them the seeds of awakening. So whether our goal is to be liberated from the wheel of birth and death, samsara, or whether our goal is to become a Buddha, a perfectly awakened being, it's important to recognize that not just we, but all sentient beings, that means any being who has consciousness, including the human beings, the gods, the hungry ghosts, the animals, and the hell beings, all beings have this potential. Now, when we're born in the lower realms, it's very difficult for us to realize that potential. It's very hard for my puppy to sit in meditation. Her little legs just don't quite fit together. And I think she has ADHD. She has trouble sitting still. But I'm working with her. I want to teach her to be calm and even-minded. So, because I recognize as a sentient being, she also has the potential to become a Buddha, right? And my kitten too is very hyperactive. So she also has the potential to become a Buddha. And all sentient beings have the potential to become a Buddha. So these are some thoughts from a Buddhist point of view. You recognize it as a Mahayana point of view. But it's very touching. And now I think with the animal rights movement, people are more and more aware of our solidarity with beings in other forms. We're finding now that elephants have not only great intelligence, but also great empathy and compassion. Maybe you've seen that YouTube video where the elephants are pulling an elephant that fell in the mud. They're all pulling that elephant out of the mud together. You may have seen a video of donkeys who are mourning the death of their donkey friend. Yeah. And of course, dolphins. We don't need to mention dolphins who have saved human beings' lives. So in this way, we recognize the potential of all beings to become a bodhisattva, like Avalokiteshvara, or to become a perfect Buddha, such as Buddha Shakyamuni and infinite Buddhas. So they say Buddhas are infinite in number. So we end by understanding that, generally speaking, equanimity or equity would be the absence of a biased attitude. If we're really going to look at equity, then we're looking at a lack of discrimination, which in a way is a very Buddhist goal, to accept all living beings as future Buddhas or future awakened ones. And to do this, we really need to get rid of our biased attitudes. We need to get rid of this feeling close to some and distant from others. In the Tibetan tradition, the bodhisattva vows are a little different from the bodhisattva vows in the Chinese tradition. And one of them is to erase feelings of closeness to some and distance from others. It's one of the major bodhisattva precepts. We already talked about the 4 Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abidings, and how these are tools. These are meditations for developing boundless loving kindness, boundless compassion, boundless sympathetic joy, and boundless equanimity that reaches to the ends of space and time. So in our thoughts, we try to erase feelings of attachment to some and aversion to others. We can work on it. It's not going to become automatic just by having the thought intellectually. It's something that we have to work on the next time we see a beggar on the street. Instead of turning away, we can maybe ask them how they're doing. They're human beings too. Some of my friends carry granola bars. Kind bars is a special favorite. And so they'll share a granola bar with the homeless because it's not fun and it's not a choice. It's really a shocking, big shame, I think, that we have 1 million homeless people in the United States. So the key word to this, the hint is all means all. Not just our loved ones, right? Not just our friends, but all beings. So this is a practice, and we need to let go of our expectations that we're suddenly going to become so magnanimous that we'll be able to think loving thoughts to even people who harm us, for example. That's another one. Our discrimination against those who harm us. And I mean, if you have escaped this, you're immensely fortunate. But most of us have run into problems where people gossip about us or, try to harm us in some way, steal from us, or, take our position or take our stuff or whatever, So now they say these are the people that we need to work on most. It's easy to love people who are lovable. The challenge is to love the nasty ones, right? So this is the challenge that I leave you with. Developing equanimity requires time and concentrated effort. But this is the Buddhist path, to develop thoughts of loving kindness for all beings without exception. And of course, this has meaning for social justice. It's not just our own personal practice. It means we can't just leave it to handing out granola bars. We need to change the structures of injustice. We need to ask why there are over 1 million homeless people on the streets of this wealthy country. 40% of them women and children. Can you imagine what it's like to live on the streets with your children? We need to ask why there are 2.2 million people in prison in this country. What is wrong with the society that locks up, 2.2 million people? And if you think on, there's some videos that will show you what it's really like to be imprisoned in this country. So, in the United States, I mean, maybe there are some countries that don't have such a huge prison population. I hope so. It's the United States is the leader on this. All, including those who are homeless, those who are incarcerated, as well as our friend and loved ones. So now I'd like to end here with my controversial thoughts and suggestions, and give time for people to ask us. Please feel free to challenge me or to add your own ideas on how we're going to achieve this goal of equity and diversity. Oh, I see a question from Denny.
Yeah, thank you for the excellent talk. I wanted to ask you, it's been a concern for a long time in the Buddhist community about inequities regarding women and having them advance in the monastic community. Now, I think Foguan Shan is a major exception to this. I think our order wouldn't be able to function without all their in leadership positions, but even the Dalai Lama was moved to make a statement asking the Buddhist community to improve the equity to make things equal for women to attain monastic ranks and stuff. So my question to you is, I picked up that you've been on a Buddhist path since the 1970s, so you've seen a lot. And my question to you is, do you think things are improving over time for women?
Things are definitely improving. this is probably a talk in itself. We could someday, maybe we can have a talk on women in Buddhism. It ought to be said topic because, of course, the Buddhist traditions are varied. Talk about diversity. I mean, the Buddhist traditions are maybe a key example of diversity, from India to Sri Lanka and to, from every part of the world. Buddhism is going to look differently, and the position of women in all of these different traditions varies as well, whether women have opportunities for full ordination or not, whether they have opportunity even for novice ordination or not. But I can assure you that things are getting better. And I think that especially in the last 35 years, things have improved immensely. Of course, in certain countries like Taiwan and Korea, Vietnam, women have virtually equal opportunities, but not completely. When you go to a major Buddhist event, usually the men are front and center, but women do the work. So you're right that Buddhism depends in large measure in order to achieve real equity, because in some traditions women don't have access to equal practice opportunities, education, and particularly leadership.
Yeah.
See, so we're working on it though, and things are definitely improving.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
While we are waiting for questions, I would like to personally thank Venerable Tsomo for taking her time to share with us her sharing on equanimity and diversity in Buddhism. It reminds me of the depiction of how all Fo Guangshan's main shrine. I remember that Venerable Master Xing Yun always reminded us the main reason for us to have so many Buddhas on the altars is a reminder for every one of us that we all have the Buddha nature. We all have the potential to realize full enlightenment. So in other words, we always need to remind ourselves to embrace others, to respect each other, no matter how different we are, It's just like our hands, our hands, every single thing, we all have different fingerprints. So we learn how to embrace each other and respect each other. And when every day, even before meal, we all say our prayers, may kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all world. So it keeps on reminding us of the four immeasurables. The hardest is not only about our discriminating mind, but is to practice sympathetic joy. When others is better than us, we don't feel jealous, but we kind of whoa, this is amazing. Yeah, it takes some time, practice, but everything is possible. Yeah, so everything is improving because of how people in the past has worked so hard over thousands of years. And even in India during the Buddha's time, the four caste system, everything is so different. The rich is so rich, and then the poor is untouchables. And then in different countries, it has different culture. The rich diversity is the one that makes this world so beautiful, so diverse, so colorful. Yeah. So I'd like to thank Venerable again for such an insightful talk, and also questions to help us reflect every day, every moment, when we interact with others, when we encounter someone that we might know, So again, like being aware of the thoughts is also part of our Bodhisattva's practice. Yeah, thank you again. So anyone, any questions or comments or feedbacks you would like to share with Venerable? You can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Tsomo. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Marisa.
Yes.
My camera is intermittent sometimes, so I have two questions. One thing I always know with the can't figure out moving with the like the number 8 like vow, which talks about how if you want to, if you wish to be reborn as a man, you can. I mean, I know like the English translations over the years have kind of like that, but in the Chinese characters, it's like I'm reading it, I'm like why? And I'm like, reading it, like, because this is like Medicine Sutra, and I'm a doctor myself, and I'm like all about Medicine Sutra, and this one always glitches at me, that's a weird one, and like, and I know there's like much more precepts for Buddhist nuns and Buddhist monks, and just so in some bizarre way in Buddhism, it almost makes me as a not, as just someone reading it and not understanding it, it feels unequal, like gender inequality, especially number 8. The second question following that is also, I mean, I would love to have sympathetic joy, and I try to as much as I can. But there are times when you feel this is unfair, whatever it is. Like, why is, the 1% like that rich and we are so screwed? And how do I feel this anger of injustice without, I don't know, still wishing them joy? So those are my two questions.
Oh, those are really good ones. When we read the Buddhist texts, actually, we do find a lot of gender discrimination. We find mixed messages. In some ways, there's many passages that praise women's attributes, their qualities. Of course, women are praised as children, but there's for their virtue, for their devotion, and so on. But we also find some passages that are very deprecating, and that women are jealous, they're backbiting, they have, like, some even say small intelligence and so forth. And a reflection probably of the society at the time. To say that the Buddha actually made a big breakthrough in even admitting women to the Sangha, he did hesitate a few times. The latest research shows that probably it was for the protection of the women, because he was afraid if they were out wandering and sleeping under trees that they would be assaulted, and some of them were. So you do find mixed messages, and I think it's a tribute to how far humanity has evolved, that today there's much greater gender equity than probably ever before in human history, in terms of education, even athletics, and government working on it. The halls of power, religion and politics. This is where they don't want women in. And so we've still got work to do. In terms of anger at injustice, it's understandable that we feel anger when we see injustices, like the economic disparities in the world today. How can these billionaires sleep at when 30,000 children are starving to death every day? I mean, how do they sleep at night? I really can't imagine. And it is enraging. Mm-hmm. So they talk about righteous indignation. Right? Now, in the Buddhist traditions, we do want to try to avoid anger. Anger is said to destroy the roots of merit. It's a very harmful emotion, both for our personal health and our equanimity, but also our human relationships. We can lose a friend with just one angry, or we can, right? We can. More importantly, I love the way Venerable was talking about respect. Respect as a human. By getting angry, we show disrespect to people, and it's very harmful. So I although there is a trend in Western psychology that should express our anger, but I disagree. According to my teachers, we should always try to control our anger. Rechannel it. So if we feel indignant at the injustices in the world, let's get active. Let's get busy, change them. They, for example, in Taiwan, you have so many social service for orphans and for senior citizens and for the needy. This is so beautiful, and many of these projects are spearheaded by Buddhists. So each one of us can contribute in our own way, and I feel that we should do what we can to address these injustices, the gender injustice, as well as economic injustice, racial injustice, all of it. That's I will also try to do my best.
I just have one more quick question, if I may, about some of the harmful actions that have been taken in Buddhist countries by Buddhists, the Roshinga. And I was thinking also there's some of that going on in southern Thailand, around Phuket, the Muslims as well. I find this just for myself, and because I do believe that Buddhists have more compassion and loving kindness, and I find myself wrestling with, I explain it to somebody that would come and ask me, well, aren't you supposed to be, self? So, the thought I had was that we're all human, and I'm thinking of the three poisons in particular here. I see anger and ignorance really being these inequities, but I'm just asking you, what are your thoughts? How can, I don't know, the word I want to say, excuse this behavior? How can we explain it from our,
yeah, I agree. We can't excuse it and we can't justify it because it's unjustifiable. But we can try to explain it a little bit with the Sinhalese and the Tamils is actually a direct result of 400 years of colonial rule in Sri Lanka. First by the Dutch, and then by the Portuguese, and then by the British, and they all tried to destroy Buddhism. Well, it makes people very protective of their culture. Cheap labor from another country, and they pay them less, and they bring in, and then they divide people by religion, give certain perks. I mean, I'm talking about the colonial rulers, give perks to certain actively divide and rule, right? Divide and conquer. That's the whole shtick, And the same, we can look at Burma. There are many factors here. In addition to colonialism, right? And bringing in migrant workers, definitely almost entirely Buddhist country, and then privileging the minorities in terms of education and political appointments and so forth. So you foment, the rulers foment these conflicts. But the situation in Burma is even more complicated because the land where the Rohingya live is very rich, and it's a conduit from China to the sea. They need this passageway to get products to market. This is what people don't recognize, don't understand, is that these lands, the Rohingya inconveniently in this corridor that is necessary to get products from China to the and then you have a government where where are they going to get that money? There are so many, behind the scenes, there's so many factors. It still does not just, however, racism in Burma or in Sri Lanka or anything else. There's no excuse for racism and oppression. And so we do need to call it. And we also need to call into question, why are we really believe in Buddhist values? Why aren't we working night and day to against capital punishment, for example? Why are Buddhists in Taiwan supporting capital punishment, the murder of human beings? How do we? In California, right? You have capital punishment.
Yeah.
I've been working in California. I paying taxes to California. I've been paying for the execution of. Way we don't have capital. I'm happy to be back home. So these are questions we need to ask. If we really believe in Buddhist values, how are we implementing them? And what more can we do, right, to ensure human happiness?
Right action and right speech, right? Yeah, thanks.
Right, there you go. There you go. Another question, or are we out of time?
Well, it's after 8 o'clock. And so I'd like to thank everybody for our questions. For the questions, a lot of really good ones this evening. And we'd like to take time to invite Venerable Miao-san to make a few closing remarks and for the dedication of merits.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you, Venerable, for your time and sharing with us your thoughts, and also sharing with us many of the reflection questions for us to think about it and be more mindful during our day-to-day interaction with our community, not only with the people, but also animals, all the beings around us. So let us end our session for today with dedication and merit. If you can, please join your palms. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May chant, Pure Land, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. So that I hope that everyone continue to stay safe, and then we dedicate this merits and peacefulness to everyone in Ukraine. May the war be stopped soon and everyone be safe. I would like to thank Venerable Tsomo for spending her time with us, and would like to thank everyone for joining us with the Thank Buddha's Friday program. So Linda, would you like to do the last announcements before we go? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable. Next month on April 29th, we will be having a Thanks Buddha It's Friday. The speaker will be Venerable Zhi Wei from Foganshan Institute of Humanistic Buddhism, and the talk will be Trash Talk, a Buddhist perspective on waste. And that concludes our program for this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you again. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Take care. Amitabha. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Amitabha.
Thank you. Bye.